In the vast sands of history, where empires rise and fall like whispers in the wind, one name echoes through the ages: the Achaemenid Empire. A dominion so vast, so powerful, that it stretches across 3 continents, ruling over 50 million souls. Imagine a world dominated by colossal powers: Babylon, Lydia, Egypt, and the Medes. Persia was but a whisper in this world, a footnote in the chronicles of greater kingdoms. Yet from these humble beginnings, an empire would be born that would shake the very foundations of the ancient world. It was an empire where the defeated were not crushed, but absorbed, where the conquered became citizens, and where power was wielded with strategy rather than brute force. But who lit the first flame of this empire? Who dared to dream of a Persia that would rule from the Indus to the Aegean? To understand the Achaemenid Empire, we must begin with the man who forged it, a leader who would become legend: Cyrus the Great, the man who would be king. No great empire is born without a great leader. And for Persia, that leader was Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was born around 600 BCE in a world dominated by powerful empires: Babylon, Media, and Lydia. He belonged to the Achaemenid dynasty, a small but ambitious Persian ruling house under the control of the Median Empire. Legend says his grandfather, King Astyages of Media, had a terrifying dream, one that foretold that his grandson would rise to overthrow him. In fear, he ordered the infant Cyrus to be killed. One of the shepherds of Astyages secretly raised Cyrus as his own. As a young man, his noble spirit, leadership, and charisma caught the attention of the Medes. When the truth of his lineage was revealed, Cyrus was finally recognized as the rightful heir of the Persian throne. By 550 BCE, Cyrus had risen to power as the king of the Persians, but Persia was still under the Median control, and he knew that to forge a great empire, he had to break free from their rule. Cyrus gathered an army and rebelled against his own grandfather Astyages. It was a battle of generations, youth against tradition, ambition against fear. The war raged for 3 years. Cyrus was different. He didn't just fight with swords, he fought with strategy. He turned Median generals to his side, weakened their ranks from within, and led a final decisive victory. By 549 BCE, the Median Empire had fallen. Cyrus did not slaughter his enemies, he absorbed them. Instead of destruction, he offered unity, making the Medes his first allies. With Media under his control, Cyrus turned his gaze westward, where another powerful kingdom stood: Lydia. Lydia, ruled by King Croesus, was known for its unimaginable wealth. The phrase, "as rich as Croesus," came from his legendary fortune. But even wealth cannot buy victory. When Croesus heard of Persia's rise, he saw Cyrus as a threat. He led an army against him in 547 BCE, but the battle ended in a stalemate. Cyrus, unpredictable as ever, pursued Croesus into Lydia before he could regroup. His forces besieged Sardis, Lydia's capital, and conquered it within weeks. But in a moment that defined Cyrus's legacy, he spared Croesus. Unlike other conquerors, Cyrus believed in mercy over slaughter. He made Croesus an advisor, absorbing Lydia's wealth, power, and influence into his growing empire. The conquest of Babylon, Cyrus's greatest victory. At the height of its power, Babylon was the jewel of Mesopotamia, a city of wonder ruled by the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It had emerged as a dominant force under kings like Nebuchadnezzar II, who built the legendary Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. and fortified the city with walls so thick they were said to be impassable. However, by 539 BCE, Babylon's last king Nabonidus had become widely resented. Unlike his predecessors, he focused more on religious reforms and personal pursuits rather than governance. While Babylon grew complacent, Cyrus II of Persia was rapidly expanding his dominion. But the crown jewel of his ambition lay in Mesopotamia. Babylon, the center of wealth and culture, stood as the ultimate prize. However, storming its massive walls would be suicidal. Cyrus needed a plan, one that would topple Babylon without a prolonged siege. Cyrus's strategy was twofold. First, he would weaken Babylon's resolve from within. Second, he would use a bold tactic maneuver to breach its defenses. Cyrus capitalized on the internal unrest among the Babylonian population. Many high-ranking officials and priests, alienated by Nabonidus' policies, were willing to support the Persian king. Some cities under Babylon's control even opened their gates to Cyrus's forces without a fight. But the real genius lay in Cyrus's tactical approach. The mighty Euphrates River flowed through Babylon, passing under its massive walls. Rather than attacking directly, Cyrus devised a daring plan. He would divert the river. On the fateful night of October 12, 539 BCE, Cyrus's forces put their plan into motion. Upstream, Persian engineers dug channels to redirect the Euphrates, causing the river's water levels to drop dramatically. By the time the Babylonians realized what was happening, it was too late. The city's defenses crumbled without a major battle. Belshazzar was killed, and within hours, the greater city of Mesopotamia was in Persian hands. Unlike the conquerors before him, Cyrus did not sack Babylon or massacre its people. Instead, he presented himself as a liberator. He restored religious practices, honored Marduk, and allowed exiled peoples, most famously the Jews, to return to their homelands. This policy of tolerance and administration was recorded in the famous Cyrus Cylinder, often called the world's first declaration of human rights. Rather than destroying, he integrated Babylon into his empire, setting the precedent for future Persian rulers. Just as the Persian Empire spread its influence far and wide, we want to spread knowledge and history across the world. If you're enjoying this journey through the Achaemenid Empire, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with fellow history lovers. Every click helps keep history alive. Darius the Great and the birth of an empire. In 530 BCE, the mighty King Cyrus the Great, founder of the Achaemenid dynasty, was dead. His son and successor, Cambyses II, continued his conquest, famously annexing Egypt. But Cambyses' reign was marked by instability. Rumor of his tyranny spread, and revolt simmered across the empire. In 522 BCE, while Cambyses was in Egypt, a man claiming to be his brother Bardia seized the throne. But was this truly Bardia, or an impostor named Guamata? Cambyses mysteriously died on his way back to reclaim power, and Persia was thrown into chaos. It was in this storm of uncertainty that a young noble named Darius, an officer of the royal guard and a distant relative of Cyrus, saw an opportunity. With a coalition of Persian nobles, Darius led a daring coup against the false king, Guamata. According to Darius's own account, inscribed for eternity on the Behistun inscription, he slew the impostor and claimed the throne. But his rule was far from secure. Almost immediately, Darius faced widespread revolts. The empire was fracturing, with rebellion breaking out from Babylon to Egypt, from Media to Elam. But Darius was no ordinary ruler. He was a military genius. Over the next 2 years, Darius waged relentless campaigns to crush the uprisings. He defeated rebels in at least 19 battles, proving his dominance. The inscriptions at Behistun detail his victories, solidifying his claim that his rule was divinely sanctioned by Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity of Zoroastrianism. Darius's genius extended far beyond the battlefield. He revolutionized the way empires were managed. One of his greatest achievements was the creation of the satrapy system, dividing the empire into provinces, each governed by a satrap, or governor, who reported directly to him. This allowed for efficient administration and control. To unify his vast lands, Darius built the legendary Royal Road, stretching over 1,500 miles from the Sardes to Susa. This engineering marvel enabled messages, goods, and armies to move at unprecedented speed, ensuring that the empire remained connected. To further unify the empire, he introduced Daric, a standardized gold coin that facilitated trade and economic stability. Under his rule, Persia flourished as a hub of commerce, connecting east and west. Darius was not just a warrior and an administrator, he was a builder. He commissioned the construction of Persepolis, a magnificent capital that would become the heart of Persian culture and politics. The grandeur of Persepolis showcased the empire's wealth, diversity, and artistic brilliance. Darius also promoted cultural unity. Inscriptions across the empire were written in 3 languages: Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian, ensuring that his decrees were understood by all. But Darius was not content with mere governance. He had grand ambitions of conquest. He expanded Persia's borders into India and into the heart of Europe, conquering Thrace and Macedonia. The Greco-Persian Wars, a challenge to empire. Darius's most famous military endeavor was against the Greeks. In 490 BCE, Darius launched his first invasion of Greece, sending a formidable force to punish Athens and Eretria. The Persian army, numbering around 25,000 men, landed at Marathon. The Athenians, vastly outnumbered, had only around 10,000 hoplites. But the Greeks had a secret weapon, the phalanx formation. As the Persians advanced, the Athenians charged with a shocking speed, catching them off guard. The result? A stunning Greek victory. The Persians suffered around 6,000 casualties, while Athens lost only about 200. Legend has it that a messenger, Phidippides, ran all the way to Athens to deliver the news, uttering the word Nike, victory, before collapsing. The Battle of Marathon proved that Persia could be defeated, but the war was far from over. Darius I died before he could launch another attack, but his son, Xerxes, took up the mission. He amassed one of the largest armies in history, estimated to be 100,000 and 300,000 men. His goal? The total subjugation of Greece. Greece stood divided. Some city-states chose to submit, but Athens and Sparta refused. They formed an alliance to resist the Persian onslaught. The fate of Greece hung by a thread. The first encounter came at Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans, led by King Leonidas, alongside 700 other Greek allies, faced the Persian horde. The narrow pass nullified the Persian advantage in numbers, allowing the Greeks to hold their ground for 3 days. But betrayal changed the course of battle. A Greek traitor, Ephialtes, revealed a secret path to the Persians, allowing them to outflank the Greeks. Realizing their fate, Leonidas and his 300 Spartans fought to the last man, becoming immortalized in history. Though a defeat, Thermopylae bought precious time for Greece. While Thermopylae was a land battle, the real turning point came at sea. Themistocles, the cunning Athenian leader, lured the Persian fleet into the narrow straits of Salamis. The larger Persian ships struggled in the confined waters, while the smaller, more maneuverable Greek triremes struck with deadly precision. By the end of the battle, the Persian navy was in ruins. Xerxes, fearing his own safety, retreated to Persia, leaving behind his general Mardonius to continue the fight. The final blow to the Persian invasion came in 479 BCE at the Battle of Plataea. Under the leadership of the Spartan general Pausanias, the Greek forces decisively defeated the remnants of the Persian army. On the same day, the Greeks also achieved victory in Mycale, destroying what was left of the Persian fleet. The Persian dream of conquering Greece was over. The Greco-Persian Wars had reshaped history, proving that the united Greece could stand against the greatest empire of its time. With Persia defeated, Athens emerged as the dominant power in Greece, ushering in its golden age. Democracy flourished, art and philosophy thrived, and the Greek world entered an era of unprecedented cultural achievements. For Persia, the war was a costly lesson. Though still a vast empire, its aura of invincibility was shattered. The Greco-Persian Wars were more than just a struggle for territory. They were a fight for ideals, for freedom, for self-rule, for the right to determine one's destiny. The fall of an empire. A humiliating defeat in Greece during the Greco-Persian Wars marked the beginning of a slow decline. The empire became plagued with internal strife, rebellion amongst its subjects, and corruption within its own administration. Meanwhile, in the small kingdom of Macedonia, a young king named Alexander was preparing for greatness. Trained by Aristotle and hardened by war, Alexander inherited his father's vision of a pan-Hellenic conquest of Persia. In 334 BCE, with an army of just 40,000 men, he crossed the Hellespont into Asia, beginning one of the most ambitious military campaigns in history. The first major encounter between Alexander and the Achaemenid forces took place at the Granaeus River in 334 BCE. The Persian satraps, underestimating Alexander, relied on their cavalry and local Greek mercenaries. But Alexander's bold strategy, leading a direct charge across the river, resulted in a decisive victory. Asia Minor was now open to the Macedonian king. In 333 BCE, Darius III himself led an army to stop Alexander at Issus. The Persian king outnumbered Alexander, but was strategically outmaneuvered. The Macedonian forces attacked the Persian center, forcing Darius to flee the battlefield. Alexander continued his conquest, moving south to capture the Persian capitals. By 330 BCE, he reached Persepolis, the heart of the Persian culture and power. In an act of both revenge and symbolism, Alexander allowed his troops to sack the city, and its magnificent palaces were set ablaze. The burning of Persepolis signified the end of Persian supremacy. With the death of Darius, Alexander declared himself the legitimate ruler of Persia. He adopted Persian customs, married Persian nobility, and incorporated Persian officials into his administration. The Achaemenid Empire had fallen, but its legacy endured in Alexander's New World Order. The fall of the Achaemenid Empire marked the end of an era, but not of its influence. Persian governance, art, and traditions left a lasting impact on the Hellenistic world and beyond. Even after Alexander's death, Persian culture continued to thrive under subsequent empires such as the Seleucids, Parthians, and Sassanids. The rise and fall of empires are woven into the fabric of history. The Achaemenid Empire may have been conquered, but its influence never truly faded.